All right, let's just get right into it. You know the feeling, right? You bend over to pick something up and your back just goes, nope, not today. Or you see a photo of yourself from what feels like maybe last year, but turns out it was a full decade ago. It's that kind of frustrating, universal truth about having a body.
And yeah, sometimes when you're really just so fed up, you might feel a little something like this. It's almost like a betrayal, you know? The very thing that's supposed to carry you through life suddenly feels like it's working against you. We've all been there.
But hang on, let's try to reframe this whole thing. What if this isn't some slow, gentle, inevitable slide? What if we look at it for what it actually feels like most days? A war. A war that every single one of us is fighting.
Okay, so if this is a war against time, then we need to know the battlefield. Who are we up against, and what weapons do we actually have in this fight?
So on one side, you've got the enemy forces, this toughest nails axis. Injury, that's the sudden ambush. Time, the relentless opponent that is never, ever lost. And entropy, which is just that slow, unavoidable unwinding of, well, everything. But we have our allies. Prevention is like our intelligence agency. It's the diet, the sleep, the stretching. And treatment, that's our battlefield medics patching us up after we take a hit. It's not a fair fight for sure. We're basically the resistance.
So, if we're in a war, what are we even fighting for? Because it's not just about surviving. The stakes are so much higher than just breathing another day.
And this right here gets to the heart of it. We get so obsessed with lifespan, just tacking more years onto the calendar. But the real battle is for health span. Those are the good years. The years you're not just alive, but you're functional, you're independent, you're in the game. We've gotten really good at adding years to life, but the real challenge is adding life to those years.
This really puts it in terms of how it feels. On one side, you've got existing. That's just biological persistence. You're going through the motions. But living, wow, that's engagement, having choices, feeling joy, having a purpose, connecting with people. It's the difference between watching the world from a window and actually walking out the door to be a part of it. That is what we're fighting for.
Okay, so we know we're in a war, and we know what we're fighting for. So how do we actually do it? What's the mindset, the actual strategy that keeps us fighting for that living part?
This is it. This one sentence sums up the entire philosophy perfectly. It's all about realizing that you are the special occasion. Right now, this random Tuesday, this is it. Waiting for some perfect moment in the future, that's a trap. That's existing. Using the good china, that is an act of living.
And this is how that philosophy breaks down into real, actual practice. Living means using the choices you have, not just getting sad about the ones you've lost. It means staying curious about the world. It means making time to connect with other people. And super important, it means going after pleasure and play just for the sake of it. Because not everything has to be about productivity.
And this is such a powerful weapon in our arsenal. It's the core idea behind laughter yoga. See, the existing mindset waits for things to be perfect before it gives itself permission to feel joy. But the living mindset, it acts first, because it knows the feeling will follow. You don't need a reason to laugh. In fact, laughing when things aren't perfect, that might be the ultimate act of defiance.
You know, this brings up a really big emotional question at the center of all this. As we're fighting this war, what should our attitude even be? Should we be angry, or should we just try to find some peace with it all?
I mean, this is the central conflict, isn't it? You've got the poet Dylan Thomas yelling at us to rage against the dying of the light. And that fire, that rage, that's what gets us to do the physical therapy and stay in the game. But then there's this other, deep human need for acceptance, for peace. And the Serenity Prayer gives us the answer. It's not one or the other. It's both. The courage, that's the rage. That's the fire to fight for what you can change. For your health span, for living. The serenity, that's the peace. That's accepting what you can't change, like the fact that time moves forward. And the wisdom? Well, that's the whole ballgame. It's knowing which fight you're in.
So let's dig into that main opponent, the one thing we really can't change, time itself. Our relationship with it is, it's complicated.
And honestly, there's no better word for it than frenemy. It just perfectly captures this idea that time isn't just some bad guy we're fighting against. It's way more complex than that.
And this slide just lays it out so clearly. As our enemy, yeah, time is the thing that takes. It's the agent of entropy. It's what makes us weaker. But as our friend, it's the very canvas that we paint our living on. It's where wisdom comes from. It's what makes every single moment precious, precisely because we don't have an infinite number of them.
This verse just captures that relationship so perfectly. It's a dance, and your partner is both threatening and supportive at the same time. One of its hands is cold, reminding you of mortality, but the other one is holding you steady, giving you the balance you need to actually live. It's this beautiful, complicated partnership.
Okay, so let's bring all this philosophy down to earth. How does this idea of fighting and living and dancing with time actually play out in our day-to-day choices? We have to watch out for this sneaky little brain trap called future discounting. It's basically our brain's default setting to want the reward right now. The cookie, the extra hour on the couch, instead of caring about the well-being of our future self. It creates this weird paradox where living in the now can mean both grabbing joy with both hands and also totally screwing over the person you're going to be next year.
So the key, of course, is balance. We're basically taking care of two different people, the person who's enjoying this moment right now and the person who hopes to enjoy a moment 5 years from now. You gotta honor both of them. Mindfully enjoying that piece of cake is living now. But you know what? Doing those boring rehab exercises, that's also an act of living. It's a gift to your future self, making sure they have a life worth living too.
And that brings us right back to where we started, with this final, very personal question. This whole thing isn't just some abstract idea, it's a daily practice. It could be making a phone call, savoring a cup of coffee, having a real laugh, or, yeah, literally using the nice plates. So think about it. What beautiful, meaningful thing have you been saving for later? What good china will you use today?
What if getting older isn't just this slow, inevitable decline, but actually an active daily war zone?
Right. It completely changes the perspective.
Exactly. Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. Today, we're throwing out that dry, clinical view of aging. We're looking at a really radical framework from a fascinating collaborative document we got our hands on.
Yeah, it's a file called fightingtime.docs, and it's this profound philosophical exchange about the realities of getting older.
And the mission for you listening right now is to shift the goalpost. We aren't looking at how to simply live longer. We're looking at how to actually live. Because the core metaphor here, which I love, is that aging is a literal war.
It is. And that framework of warfare, it isn't just a dramatic metaphor, it's a highly accurate way to understand human biology. The document maps out this battlefield perfectly, starting with the Axis powers.
The bad guys, basically.
Exactly. First, you have injury. This is the unpredictable insurgent. It strikes without warning from totally mundane things like, I don't know, stepping off a curb or lifting a box.
It's totally out of nowhere.
Right. Then you have time. Time is the ultimate patient adversary. It never negotiates, it never retreats, and it never, ever takes a day off.
Wow, yeah.
And finally, entropy. This is the literal law of physics dictating the slow cellular unwinding of everything your body has built.
So we are quite literally fighting a thermodynamic certainty. I mean, no wonder they call it asymmetric warfare.
It really is. It's asymmetric because the enemy has infinite resources. Time has all the time in the world.
Literally.
Literally. Meanwhile, human biology has finite energy, finite cellular divisions, finite resilience. So, to fight back, we have to rely on our allies.
Okay, let's unpack this. Who are the allies?
Well, first there is prevention. This is the unglamorous daily intelligence work.
Like eating your veggies.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. It's sleep, nutrition, mobility work, stress management. It's that invisible daily effort that stops the insurgent attack of injury before it even happens.
Right.
Then we have treatment. That's our emergency response team. Medicine, surgery, pharmaceuticals, these are reactive forces trying to repair the infrastructure after time and entropy score a direct hit.
Okay, so if we're fighting an asymmetric war against the literal laws of physics, conventional wisdom says we lose, right? The house always wins.
Yeah, in conventional terms, absolutely. Time has never lost this war.
So how do we fight a war we know we can't conventionally win without just, collapsing into despair?
You redefine the victory conditions. The overarching premise here is that while the ultimate outcome of the war is fixed, mortality is a guarantee, the dignity, the strategy, and the quality of your resistance are completely within your control.
I like that, the quality of the resistance.
Exactly. And to understand what a victory actually looks like, we have to look at the massive gap between lifespan and health span.
Right, because those terms get thrown around interchangeably, but they are radically different battlegrounds. Lifespan is just the raw chronological count. It's biological persistence.
Consuming oxygen, basically.
Yeah, and let's be honest, the modern medical industrial complex is essentially a lifespan extension machine.
It is. Medicine is incredibly good at acute intervention. If you have a heart attack, we have the technology to restart your engine and keep the machine running for another 20 years. We can keep human bodies technically alive far beyond what nature originally designed.
Which is amazing,
But health span is where medicine frequently drops the ball. Health span is the duration of your life spent in functional, independent, and joyful engagement. It's the years you can get off the floor without pain, think clearly, and actively participate in the world.
And the real tragedy of this war is that we're constantly seeing health span end decades before lifespan does.
Yes.
We're artificially extending the timeline, but we're mostly just extending the tail end of the decline, adding years to a life but failing to add life to those years. Which brings us to a major conceptual shift in this document, the difference between just existing and actually living.
Right. So existing is passive. It's just maintaining a pulse and watching the world happen through a window.
Just going through the motions.
Exactly. But living requires agency. It's walking through the door and interacting with the chaos. The mindset of living prioritizes intensity over duration.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning a fully engaged, deeply present 20-minute conversation with a friend is infinitely more, quote-unquote, living than sitting in the same room with them for 3 hours while you both just scroll on your phones.
Oh, absolutely.
It's finding agency in your constraints, staying curious, even having a purpose as simple as remembering your neighbor's birthdays.
But hold on, let me just push back on this for a second.
Sure.
The idea of just choosing to live sounds great on a podcast, but it flirts a little with toxic positivity, doesn't it? When someone's body is actively rebelling, when they are dealing with chronic pain or progressive mobility loss, how do they practically force that mindset shift without just being in total denial?
That is the crucial tension of this entire philosophy. Denial isn't living. Denial is a delusion that eventually leads to injury.
Right, because the stairs are still hard to climb whether you admit it or not.
Exactly. But total capitulation, deciding that because you can't hike the mountain anymore, you might as well never leave the couch. That is just existing.
So what's the middle ground?
The mechanism to shift from existing to living is what this framework calls accepting limits without surrendering to them.
Okay, so it's about finding agency within the constraint, not pretending the constraint doesn't exist.
Precisely. If your knees are bad, acknowledging that reality means you mourn the loss of running, but living means you proactively pivot to swimming. Or if you can't hike anymore, you choose the paved path. You are still choosing.
I see. And this translates perfectly into one of the most practical, honestly, my favorite metaphor in this whole philosophy, the good China concept.
Oh, yes. The idea that you, your everyday life, are the special occasion.
It's so common, right? People have the nice plates, the expensive bottle of wine, the special outfit, and they leave it in a cabinet waiting for the perfect moment to use it.
We all do it.
We do. But this framework argues that waiting for the perfect moment is a trap. Entropy and time are not waiting for you to declare a holiday.
No, they are not.
The person who's just existing carefully preserves their resources. They don't want to use things up. But the person who is truly living realizes that the act of using the good china on a random Tuesday is what actually creates the value. You risk breaking a plate to gather a memory.
Because preservation is an illusion. Entropy will degrade the china in the cabinet eventually, whether you use it or not. You might as well extract the joy from it.
That is such a powerful reframe.
It is. And there's a biological parallel to this, which brings us to the second major tactical tool in this war laughter yoga.
Oh man, laughter yoga.
The core lesson of laughter yoga flips our standard understanding of emotion upside down. We usually think, I feel happy, therefore I laugh. But the neurological reality is that it works in reverse, too.
Explain that, because when I first encountered this in the source material, it sounded completely backwards. How does the action precede the emotion?
It's based on the facial feedback hypothesis and proprioception. Your brain is constantly monitoring your body's physical state to figure out how it should feel.
Like it's checking in.
Yeah, exactly. So when you force a laugh, even a completely fake mechanical laugh, your diaphragm spasms, your vocal cords engage, and you take in deep rhythmic breaths of oxygen.
Okay.
This sends a signal through the vagus nerve to your brain's amygdala, essentially saying, hey, the body is laughing, we must be safe, we must be experiencing joy.
Wait, really? The brain just buys it?
It totally buys it. Your brain doesn't know the difference between fake laughter and real laughter. The physiological cascade is the same. Action precedes feeling.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. It sounds like waiting for the right time to be happy is exactly like waiting for a room to warm up before you decide to turn on the heater.
Oh, I love that.
Right. You can't just sit there freezing. You have to take the physical action of flipping the switch first, and then the warmth follows.
That is a phenomenal analogy. Waiting for perfect conditions to feel joy is a losing strategy because those axis powers, time and entropy, they were constantly degrading your conditions. Your back will ache, the news will be bad, but you can physically force the laugh anyway. And doing so while in pain isn't toxic positivity. It is an act of defiant agency. You are actively altering your neurochemistry as an act of rebellion against entropy.
But that brings up a really difficult paradox, I think. If we are aggressively using the good china and defiantly laughing through the pain, aren't we just angrily fighting reality until the bitter end? Like, how do we balance this fierce defiance with the objective reality of our physical limits?
To solve that, the document pulls in Viktor Frankl.
That's psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust.
Yes. Frankl observed that survival wasn't just about physical robustness, it was heavily tied to a psychological locus of control. His core thesis is that the last of human freedoms is the ability to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances.
So meaning-making becomes our third ally in this war.
Exactly. Meaning-made.
And meaning-making requires a really delicate balance between rage and peace. In the text, they bring up Dylan Thomas's famous line, rage,
Yep.
rage against the dying of the light. Biologically, rage is incredibly useful, isn't it? It triggers adrenaline. It's the sheer force of will that gets you out of bed to do excruciating physical therapy when your body just wants to quit.
It is vital. But rage without peace is toxic. Biologically, sustained rage is just chronic stress. It elevates cortisol, causes systemic inflammation, and literally accelerates entropy.
So fighting too hard actually speeds up the enemy.
Exactly. If you just rage against reality, you exhaust yourself fighting battles that were lost years ago, you become bitter. But on the flip side, peace without rage is just resignation. It's going gentle into irrelevance.
So how do you synthesize the two?
The Source maps the Serenity Prayer perfectly onto our battlefield.
Oh, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change.
Courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.
Yes.
Serenity is making peace with the reality of the Axis powers. You will age, entropy will win.
Okay, and courage.
Courage, or that vital rage, is fighting alongside your allies. It's doing the squats, eating the vegetables, using the good china.
Which leaves wisdom as the deciding factor. But here's my struggle with this. Wisdom seems like the hardest part, because the front line keeps moving.
What do you mean?
Well, what my body could easily do yesterday, it might not be able to do today. So how do we recognize when it's time to call a truce without feeling like we're just throwing in the towel and surrendering?
What's fascinating here is understanding that a truce is a military strategy, not a surrender. A truce is a deliberate realignment of energy.
A realignment.
Think about it geographically. If a general realizes a certain outpost is indefensible, they don't waste their remaining troops dying for it. They pull back to defend the capital.
Oh, wow. That makes a lot of sense.
Right. Calling a truce with a bad knee isn't surrender. It's looking at your finite resources and saying, I will not waste my emotional and physical energy fighting a joint that cannot be fixed. I am pulling those resources back so I can fight fiercely for my cardiovascular health or for my relationships.
That completely reframes how I was looking at it. You stop fighting the unwinnable micro battle to protect your energy for the macro war.
Exactly.
And speaking of that macro war, let's look at the ultimate enemy time. We established it as the ultimate Axis power. But there was a profound twist in this philosophy. What if time is actually the very thing making the war worth fighting in the first place?
This requires a massive cognitive shift. We have to view time as a frenemy.
A frenemy.
Yes, it was the agent of decay and loss. Absolutely. That makes it the enemy. But it is simultaneously the only canvas we have for living. It's the source of wisdom and the creator of value.
Because scarcity creates value.
Precisely.
Like if diamonds were as common as gravel, they'd be worthless. If human lifespan were infinite, a random Tuesday dinner would hold zero significance. The urgency to use the good china only exists because we are keenly aware that we don't have an infinite supply of Tuesdays.
Without time, there is no accrual of wisdom, no deepening of relationships, and this introduces a profound human countermeasure to entropy narrative. Storytelling.
Because entropy is just the universe moving from order to chaos.
Right. But human consciousness, through legacy and story, does the exact opposite. We take chaotic, random events and weave them into structured meaning.
Which means the scratches on your dining table or the chip in the good china aren't just evidence of entropy, They are physical data points of a story being written.
They are footnotes in a life well lived.
There's a poem associated with this framework that captures this perfectly. It's called The Good China Wars, and it says, "You came to live the life you choose, to matter in the space you're in."
It's beautiful.
And it embraces this exact paradox with the lines, "This partner in our joy and strife, this frenemy, my friend, is life."
And we don't write those stories in isolation either. Community acts as our fourth ally. We biologically regulate each other's nervous systems. Grief is literally lighter to bear when witnessed by a community.
Oh, for sure. We rage better together.
Even the laughter yoga. It is exponentially more effective when done in a group because mirror neurons in our brains catch and amplify the physiological signals of the people around us.
But this brings up a massive behavioral trap, I think.
Okay, what is it?
If time is our frenemy and scarcity creates value, and we are supposed to cram all this living and meaning into the present moment, doesn't that just lead to a YOLO mentality?
You only live once.
Yeah. Like, why not eat the entire cake, skip the grueling physical therapy, ignore tomorrow entirely?
Because that leads directly into the trap of future discounting. Future discounting is a concept from behavioral economics that explains our tendency to value immediate, smaller rewards over future, larger ones.
Like the marshmallow test.
Exactly, but on a macro lifespan scale. From an evolutionary standpoint, human brains are hardwired for immediate survival. Our ancient ancestors needed immediate calories. They didn't need to plan for retirement at 65.
Right, they were just trying to survive Tuesday.
Right. So today, when we are faced with the choice of eating a donut now versus maintaining cardiovascular health for a decade from now, our brain screams for the donut. In fact, functional MRI scans show that when people are asked to think about their future selves, the brain regions that light up are the same ones that activate when thinking about a complete stranger.
Wait, really?
Yes, we literally perceive our future selves as someone else.
That is wild. So when we future discount, we are essentially using a biological credit card. We're charging immediate comfort and pleasure to today's account at a massive physiological interest rate that this stranger, our future self, is going to have to pay off.
That is a brilliant way to put it. The paradox of the Good China philosophy is that it demands we embrace joy today, but it also demands we do the unglamorous preventative work to protect tomorrow's capacity for joy.
So you can't just YOLO your way through it.
No, if you skip your rehab exercises just to be comfortable on the couch today, you are abandoning your own supply lines.
But there is a flip side to that trap, too. If you overcorrect and you constantly invest everything into the future, if you restrict every calorie, never use the Good China because you are terrified of tomorrow, you arrive at some day so exhausted that you have no joy left to experience.
That is the tragedy of overprevention. But the document offers a beautiful synthesis for this tension. You steward age by spending youth.
You steward age by spending youth. Wow.
It's an expansion of love across time.
It's like we have to treat our future self as a beloved friend rather than a stranger we're dumping our problems onto.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the person who is truly succeeding in this asymmetric war holds both realities simultaneously. They savor the present while stewarding the future.
They force the defiant laugh when their joints hurt today, but they ice the knee anyway.
Yes. They use the Good China, but they wash it carefully afterward.
So, bringing this all together for everyone listening, we started out looking at aging as this medical inevitability, right?
Yeah.
Just a war against time and entropy. But we've discovered it's actually about fighting for health span over just lifespan.
And learning to bring out the Good China on a random Tuesday.
Exactly. And realizing that time isn't just an enemy, it's the canvas that makes our stories valuable in the first place. You don't need to wait for a special occasion or perfect health to start living.
No, you have the agency to choose your stance right now, today.
Which brings us to a final thought for you to take away. Sometime today, look around your house. Find that one physical object. Maybe it's a bottle of wine you've been saving for the perfect dinner, a piece of clothing with the tag still on, or yeah, a set of nice dishes that you've been protecting from entropy.
The stuff in the back of the cabinet?
Right. Ask yourself, what if the ultimate act of defiance against the passage of time isn't preserving that object, but letting it get a little worn out, a little scratched because it was a witness to you actually living today? Are you willing to risk a chip in the plate to write a new page in your story?